There are stars that burn out slowly, and there are stars that explode. Marilyn Monroe was both. 6 decades after her death, the official story still feels incomplete. A locked bedroom, a phone in her hand, and 2 words written in every newspaper on that August morning: probable suicide. But when you look deeper, the evidence begins to tremble. It was the night of August 4th, 1962, in Brentwood, Los Angeles, inside a quiet house on 5th Helena Drive. The most famous woman in the world was trying to fall asleep. At 3 o'clock that morning, her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, noticed that the light in Marilyn's bedroom was still on. She knocked once, then twice. No answer. The door was locked from the inside. Eunice called 2 men, her psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, and her physician, Dr. Hyman Engelberg. When Greenson arrived, he smashed a window to get in. Inside, Marilyn lay face down on her bed, completely nude, her right hand gripping the telephone as if she had tried to call for help. On the nightstand, a dozen empty pill bottles. Among them, Nembutal and chloral hydrate, both powerful sedatives. At 3:50 a.m., she was declared dead, and strangely, the police would not be called until nearly an hour later. The following morning, her body was brought to the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office. Dr. Thomas Noguchi, a young pathologist who would one day be called the coroner to the stars, began his examination. His official conclusion read, acute barbiturate poisoning due to ingestion of overdose, probable suicide. But the details he recorded told a more complex story. No needle marks, no bruises, no signs of physical trauma. And inside her stomach, no remaining pills, no capsules, nothing. Just an irritated lining, suggesting the drugs had already been absorbed hours earlier. Her blood contained 4.5 mg% of Nembutal and 8 mg% of chloral hydrate. Her liver held nearly 13 mg% of barbiturate, enough to stop her breathing. But the method, still a mystery. To understand her death, you have to understand her war with sleep. Long before she was Marilyn Monroe, she was Norma Jean Mortensen, a girl abandoned at 2 years old, raised in foster homes, and according to reports, abused in at least one of them. By her teens, she was already terrified of the dark. That fear never left. In Hollywood, where the nights were louder, she fought insomnia with pills, one to wake her, one to rest, and another when both failed. Dexedrine to start the day, Nembutal to end it. And sometimes chloral hydrate, the hypnotic doctors once called liquid sleep. But her tolerance grew. She needed more to drift off. And each dose pushed her closer to the edge of no return. In a letter written 18 months before her death, she confessed, "Sometimes I wonder what night is for. Everything seems like one long, horrible day." By the summer of 1962, Marilyn's private life was collapsing under her public image. She had been fired from her unfinished film, Something's Got to Give, after missing 17 days of shooting. Fox executives called her unreliable. Reporters called her unstable. The actress, who once commanded every flashbulb, was now described as a problem. At the same time, her personal life was unraveling. Affairs with powerful men whispered in every column. President John F. Kennedy, then his brother Robert. But the same charm that made her irresistible also made her dangerous. When she sang "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" in that glittering, flesh-tight dress, the performance was more than iconic. It was political. It embarrassed the White House. And soon after, both brothers distanced themselves from her. Those close to Marilyn said that rejection hurt more than the headlines. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Greenson, worried that she was sinking into a severe depressive state. He urged her housekeeper to stay with her at all times. He knew her cycles, the manic energy, the hopeless crash, the constant need for medication to survive the day. Modern psychologists would later call it bipolar disorder, though back then the term was rarely used. Marilyn herself once admitted, My moods jump like the ocean, 1 minute calm, the next drowning. Her bedroom was filled with prescription bottles, a silent audience to her anxiety, and among them 2 labels that would soon make history: Nembutal and chloral hydrate. In the days before her death, she received a fresh prescription for 50 capsules of chloral hydrate. Just 1 day earlier, she had refilled her Nembutal prescription. When investigators entered her room, both bottles were empty. That alone might suggest suicide, but Dr. Noguchi couldn't find physical proof, no traces of unabsorbed pills in her stomach, meaning she might not have taken them all at once, but gradually, over hours or perhaps days. So how did it become fatal? That's the mystery that still divides experts. Her photographer, Lawrence Schiller, had seen her just weeks before. He said she looked radiant, full of life. Some friends agreed. She was planning new projects, even reconnecting with her ex-husband, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. Others remembered something different. Long silences, empty wine glasses, sudden tears. It's possible both were true. The last months of her life were a storm of contradictions, a woman adored by millions, but terrified of being alone. A symbol of desire who couldn't sleep without drugs, a star who wanted to be taken seriously, but was trapped inside her own creation. On the night of August 4th, her world went quiet. At 8 p.m., she told her housekeeper she was going to bed. At 8:30, she spoke to Peter Lawford, her voice slow, uncertain. Her last words to him, "Say goodbye to the president." At 10 p.m., she called a friend, but he didn't answer. The operator said her voice just faded away. After that, nothing. Only the soft hum of a light that would stay on until morning. When Dr. Greenson broke through the window hours later, the scene looked almost staged. The phone, the body, the empty bottles, too neat, too cinematic. And that's where the official story begins, and where the doubts never ended. What really happened inside that bedroom? Was it suicide, an accident, or something darker, hidden behind the glow of power and fame? The autopsy of Marilyn Monroe didn't just reveal what was inside her body. It revealed what was missing. There were no signs of struggle, no bruises, no needle marks, only a strange quiet, the silence of a woman whose life had been consumed by whispers. And yet, the more the coroner searched for clarity, the deeper the mystery became. Dr. Thomas Noguchi's final report listed the cause of death as acute barbiturate poisoning. The lethal dose came from 2 substances, Nembutal and chloral hydrate. Her blood held 4.5 mg% of Nembutal and 8 mg% of chloral hydrate. Inside her liver, the concentration rose to 13 mg%. That meant only one thing: the drugs had been fully absorbed before death. But here's the catch. Not a single undissolved pill was found in her stomach. No residue, no capsule fragments, which meant she hadn't swallowed them all at once. Someone with that much in their system shouldn't have had time to lock a door, hold a phone, or position themselves neatly in bed. So, how did it happen? Dr. Noguchi couldn't say for sure. That's why his report ended with 2 cautious words: probable suicide. Probable, not certain. Marilyn's personal records painted a disturbing pattern. She had been living in a cycle of chemical dependency for years. Sedatives to rest, stimulants to function. Her doctor prescribed Dexedrine to keep her awake during filming, then Nembutal to calm her nerves. And when even that failed, chloral hydrate, a hypnotic drug powerful enough to slow breathing within minutes. In the 4 days before her death, she had consumed nearly 40 capsules of sedatives. Her tolerance was so high that normal doses barely worked. Those close to her described her as either wide awake or barely conscious. There was no in-between. 18 months before she died, she had written, "I stayed awake the whole night again. Sometimes I feel the night will never end." She wasn't exaggerating. A psychiatric evaluation included in the autopsy file described her as a patient with severe fears and unpredictable mood swings. Miss Monroe, it read, suffered from long-term psychiatric disturbance, experienced abrupt mood changes, and often expressed wishes to give up and even to die. But the same document also confirmed that in every previous overdose, she had called for help. Each time, someone had saved her. That night, she had reached for the phone again. Her right hand was still holding it when she was found, but the call never went through. Maybe she misdialed. Maybe she lost consciousness too quickly. Maybe she simply ran out of time. Marilyn's relationship with sleep was almost spiritual, a place she longed for and feared. As a child, she cried through the night in orphanages. As a woman, she learned to sedate her pain in silence. When fame came, so did the isolation. People adored the image, but few knew the person. Norma Jean disappeared beneath the blonde hair, the red lips, the perfection she built. She once told a friend, "Hollywood is a place where they'll pay you $1,000 for a kiss and 50 cents for your soul." Maybe that wasn't a metaphor. Decades later, a British forensic pathologist named Dr. Richard Shepherd reopened the case. The same man who investigated the deaths of Princess Diana and victims of the September 11th attacks. He studied every medical note, every photo, every lab result, and what he found changed the interpretation of Marilyn's death forever. He discovered that both Nembutal and chloral hydrate had been prescribed by two different doctors, Dr. Ralph Greenson and Dr. Hyman Engelberg. Each drug alone could sedate a patient. Together, they could shut down the respiratory system entirely. Dr. Engelberg denied ever prescribing chloral hydrate, but a prescription bottle with his name, dated July 25, 1962, was found on her nightstand, proof that he had. To Dr. Shepherd, that was the smoking gun. He concluded that Marilyn's death was accidental, a fatal interaction caused by medical negligence, not intentional suicide. She wanted to sleep, he wrote, and her doctors gave her the means to never wake up. But the world refused to accept a quiet explanation. Conspiracies multiplied like shadows. Some said the Kennedys silenced her. Others claimed she was murdered with a syringe or a pillow. A Hollywood detective insisted he had recordings of a violent argument in her home, but those tapes were never produced. A paramedic later swore that her psychiatrist injected barbiturates straight into her heart. Yet the autopsy told a different story. No broken ribs, no puncture wounds, no signs of suffocation. It's not impossible that others were involved that night, but there's simply no evidence to prove it. And if we strip away the rumors, what remains is a tragedy that was far too human. A patient over-medicated by the very men meant to protect her. Her body was described as that of a well-developed, well-nourished Caucasian female, 36 years of age. No signs of external trauma, no indication of foul play. Her hair, lightened blonde, eyes, blue, skin, pale ivory. A small incision beneath the bikini line revealed a carefully placed appendectomy scar, evidence of a surgeon more concerned with aesthetics than anatomy. A fading chin implant showed signs of degeneration. Even in death, her beauty had been medically preserved, the perfect illusion intact. So what truly happened in those final moments? Dr. Shepherd reconstructed it step by step. He believed Marilyn had taken a moderate dose of chloral hydrate earlier in the evening, enough to make her drowsy, to blur her memory. Then, as she grew restless again, she reached for Nembutal. The combination was lethal. The two drugs interacted, depressing her brain's respiratory centers. Her breathing slowed, then shallowed, until it simply stopped. There was no time to cry out, no chance to call for help. It was quiet, too quiet. The world awoke to chaos. Reporters surrounded the house before dawn. By sunrise, her death was international news. Hollywood's brightest light had gone out. Her ex-husband, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, arranged a small funeral. He banned every Hollywood producer, every Kennedy, every studio executive, and for the next 20 years, he sent red roses to her crypt every single week. He never remarried. He never spoke her name in public again. Some say those roses were his apology for loving the image and not the woman. She's buried at Westwood Village Memorial Cemetery, surrounded by other legends who also learned the cost of fame. Visitors still come every day, leaving lipstick marks on the marble, whispering questions that will never be answered. Was it suicide, an accident, a cover-up? The truth is, we may never know, because somewhere between science and celebrity, reality blurred, and the woman became a myth. But one thing remains certain: Marilyn Monroe didn't die because she was weak. She died because she was human, exhausted, over-medicated, and misunderstood in a world that only wanted her smile. She wanted to be taken seriously. She wanted to be loved, and more than anything, she wanted to sleep. That night she finally did.